Chris, saying yes to joining us for a short but hopefully thought-provoking conversation around what does he actually mean when he says technology is dead. For some of you, you might have been lucky to have met Chris when he was at the Copenhagen FinTech Week back in 2019. An amazing, knowledgeable, insightful person that comes with a lot of opinions, luckily, on technology and how we live our lives. Now an operating partner at Digital Fuel Capital, also strategic advisor and speaker on innovation, and previously managing director at Harvard Innovation Lab. I was fortunate enough to meet Chris, I think, back in the days at Singapore FinTech Festival. Welcome, Chris. Are you with us?
Hi, Thomas.
Chris, were you listening in a bit when we did our polling and some of the answers here?
I heard every word.
Okay. Good. Well, and I know I just wanted to ask you as a first question, any reflections when you saw and listened into how the room voted on some of the topics here?
I think, well, firstly, I admire Nordic values. I think your part of the world probably is more enlightened about how we as a species should be operating and how we should be prioritizing our actions and behaviors compared to other parts of the world. I think the one that stuck out for me was how human-centered design ranked fairly low in terms of a priority area for focus, for FinTech focus, and FinTech innovation focus. Because, the irony for me about that is, and really part of the impetus for ultimately writing the book, Technology is Dead, was my time at Harvard overseeing the Innovation Lab, which is an incubator for Harvard student and Harvard alumni startups, and realizing that the 90+% of those startups failed, seeing them fail, hundreds of startups every year. And then more broadly in the world, most startups fail, and then the question is, well, why is it that they fail? And the reason why they fail isn't the inability to create the innovation, it's the inability to get adoption of the innovation, which is a human issue. If you can't get the human to adopt what it is you've created, then you have not created it in a way that meets the human where they are, that solves a truly human and meaningful problem. And therefore, I deduce that human-centered design, or more pointedly, human understanding, is the foundation capacity to achieve success, not just in FinTech innovation, in any form of innovation. But we choose as a species to ignore that and jump to the shiny objects of AI and quantum computing and blockchain, believing that the technologies in and of themselves will solve the human problem. 90% of the time, they do not. And
So
even in the cases where they solve the problem, they create unintended problems. And that also is a problem.
So is that when, and I don't remember if it's on your website or it's maybe on the back cover of your book, Chris, that I read, that you write that our first of all, you call your book Technology is Dead, which is certainly a statement, and then you say our relationship with technology is fundamentally broken. What do you mean with that? What are you trying to tell us here?
Well, the reason for the title of the book is an attempt to, and I explain this in the introduction, that I think technology has reached a point of ubiquity in our lives where it actually feels like it is part of us. and it has insinuated itself into every nook and cranny of what we do pretty much 24/7. And there's some real benefits to that, but I think there's some real issues with that. And I think any of us who are parents of young children uh, feel those issues on a daily basis. But the point is, it's an inanimate proposition. It's a tool, and it is not in us. It is outside of us, and we need to recognize that relationship. And most importantly, we need to decide how we want to use that tool to both realize its full potential while mitigating its unintended consequences. A metaphor I use in the book is the idea of technology as a ever accelerating train, a bullet train going faster and faster and faster. And the real issue we have as a society is we are not in the locomotive. Humans are in the caboose. We are in the back of the train. We are not guiding the train. We are not steering the train. We are not determining its ultimate destination. The train is 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 on its own. And I think ultimately that's the greatest existential threat we have, which is not to say I'm anti-technology. It's just I am pro-humanity. And humanity needs to find its way into the locomotive of that train.
And let's just stick with, because now I'm picking up on your on your illustration with the train. So I'm wondering, because if you look at who's actually steering the train, and you used it as and said it's technology, but if you look at who is then laying the rails or controlling the infrastructure, and I think you're talking to a bunch of Europeans and Nordic people here, right? Primarily, at least in the room. And when you look at who is building and owning the cloud, who is building and owning the technologies that we now are using, especially when it comes to AI, that's the Americans. And and I'm a little bit, your reflections on that, speaking to a group of, again, coming back to primarily, there's a lot of different people dialing in online, but in the room here, Europeans and Nordic people, should we be afraid?
Yes. I mean, I think the entire world should be afraid. When you say Americans, I think the more alarming thing, Thomas, is it's actually not our government. It's the creators of the technology itself who are reaping the benefit of the commercial benefit of unleashing this force, this creature. So, I mean, the terrible truth is the people in the locomotive of the train are the techno utopian, the Elon Musk of the world, who really believe that technology will solve every problem. Like any unintended consequence it is creating, it will solve that problem. And I don't fundamentally believe that is true. I do not.
So, okay, so given, let's just say that for the sake of argument, that it is really a problem, and we need to do something differently, and especially zooming in a little bit on financial services, because it's so fundamental in our lives. And what do we need to do different, Chris? You point out the challenges and the problems, but what should we as innovators, technologists, bankers, startups, what should we do different?
Yeah, I think there's a systems answer to the question, and then there's a more on the ground human answer to the question. I think the systems answer to the question is, like, everything is a system. A family is a system, a company is a system, a city is a system, a country is a system. The human species and the way we interoperate as a system. And for a system to be effective, we need to be really clear on what the intention of the system is, call it the output of the system. And I don't believe we as a species have agreement on what the intention of the system is outside of gross domestic product, outside of economic gain, outside of productivity. And I think that's the beginning of the problem. You know, if the sole intention of the system and the sole intention of fintech innovation is to enable economic gain or growth at a country or company level, uh, there's plenty of research and plenty of data that shows that not everybody benefits from that. In fact, it stratifies society, and you end up with the haves and the have-nots, and in a really extreme form. And you look at, and by the way, I'm not anti-capitalist either. I'm just like I'm not anti-technology. I'm not anti-capitalism, but I believe there's a balanced approach to this. And so the first thing that I argue for in the book is a an embrace of the intention of the system at any level, not being simply about economic growth or GDP, but actually being about well-being. And I think again, the Nordic countries have a better grasp on this than maybe any other part of the world. That the collective well-being of our species is what this is all about in every form, physical and mental and spiritual, the ability to pay their bills, whatever, that should be the intention of the system, not simply uh, you know revenue for revenue's sake. That's at a system level. At a human level, the thing we can do is care more and study more and better understand the other, whether the other is a customer, the other is a partner, the other is a child, the other is the neighbor, the other is a stranger. We have in the US, there's all this stuff being published right now, including comments by our Surgeon General about the loneliness epidemic in America, which is a way of saying technology has accidentally enabled us to disconnect from each other, caused us to do that. And when we don't know the other, when we don't even know ourselves anymore, when we don't know our child, you have to ask yourself the question, well, A, is that contributing to well-being? Of course not. And B, isn't knowing the other and knowing thyself fundamental to being human? And so my thing, is okay. The system's solution to this is really, really complicated and maybe actually impossible. But what is not impossible is the ability to take more time to listen to the other, to ask questions about the other, to get closer to the other, to better understand the other, to inform the quality of your relationship, the quality of your innovation, the quality of your company. Everything can be made better if we simply work harder to understand the other.
Thank you so much, Chris. I could talk to you for hours about this subject, and I think it's super interesting. Luckily, you will be joining us as a speaker in person. So next time we will be seeing you in Copenhagen in September, where we hopefully will have time to take even deeper dives into this topic together with you. So thank you so much for taking your time and spending it a bit
Of course.
with us here. And was that a sign that you have a last thing to say?
Yeah, I just wanted
Yeah.
two compliments. One is just congratulations to you and your team and the entire Nordic fintech ecosystem for what you've accomplished over the last 5 years. I was with you in 2019, and it was amazing. But how you've grown is really incredible. And then secondly, I really commend you for the 2025 theme. I mean, at the end, whatever the end is, we will be proven right. That the historians of the future will write about the need for humanity to reconnect to humanity, the need to focus less on the technologies and more on the consequences of technologies in terms of how we behave, particularly with each other. And so I just want to congratulate you and everybody for having the courage and the vision to go down this path.
Thank you so much, Chris. Have a very nice day in Boston, if that's where you are now. I believe it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Have a very nice day. Thank you for joining us. Should we give Chris
You
a
bet.
hand?
We'll see you in September.
Thank you.